Juan Enrique, known since his student days under the pseudonym Zero, as an adult, he becomes a brilliantly successful physicist. In recent years, he has been working with a particle accelerator and has to present his new invention to the world. Sandra learns of a failed experiment authorized without her permission. This businesswoman is tired of constantly bailing out her childhood friend of hers, and she is ready to invest her money in another project. The head of the science project goes out of his temper and he claims that his former college roommate is a real traitor. Intent on proving to Sandra and the world that he is not a nullity, Juan wants to carry out one last experiment, claiming that his device is functional. Together with best friend and colleague Otavio, Juan puts into operation the device that should make them rich. To prove that his invention works, Juan enters the sustainable energy source. Finding himself inside, Juan never stops thinking about the fateful night 20 years ago. On that very day, his girlfriend Helena betrayed him and publicly humiliated him, after which he was given the nickname Zero. The device starts at full power, causing a blackout not only at the university, but also across the continent. Recovering from the university basement, Juan returns to his home. However, he is unable to open the front door because the key does not fit in the lock. Taking a look at the Guardian, the scientist immediately realizes that the man looks much younger. On TV, they broadcast the events of 1991, and this brings Juan into a state of shock. Speaking to passersby, he concludes that he was able to make the first-time travel, returning in 1991. Trying to come to his senses, Juan goes to the bar and asks for a drink. He understands that now that he's gone back 20 years, he can really drastically change his future life. However, he is reluctant to act because making changes in the past can distort the original timeline, changing or completely eliminating the future he knows. The bartender states that a man cannot live in fear, and that it is better to take risks and fail than not to risk at all and then regret not trying. Thanking the barman, Juan suggests that he place a bet on the match broadcast on TV, predicting the exact result. Arriving at the college party, Juan meets some friends and realizes that no one should see his face. Masking his face with bandages, he sneaks into the ceiling, where he sees how his young self makes love for the first time with his girlfriend, Helena. As soon as the young self is left alone, Juan approaches us and reveals his adult face to him. He explains that in the future he will invent the time machine, and now he has gone back to the past to make sure that he young does not make the same mistakes. At the party, Juan meets Otavio and explains to him all future political events, thanks to which they will be able to get rich. After that, he informs his young self that Helena's ex-boyfriend Ricardo will soon put drugs in her champagne, and then she will humiliate him publicly by pouring honey and feathers on him. He also informs him that she will become a model and she will fly to Spain with Ricardo, leaving him alone. Stopping fear and no longer stammering, young Juan meets Helena, and he tells her what will happen in a few minutes. He begs her to be careful of Ricardo because he will put drugs in her champagne. Helena is at first reluctant to believe him, but because he loves him so much, she decides to trust her words. Ricardo approaches us and offers them drinks, but the two order him to drink it in turn to prove that there is nothing inside. Ricardo takes a few sips and the drug takes effect immediately, so he goes away, leaving the two alone. Noticing a famous producer in the distance, Juan tells another thing to his girlfriend. He asks her to give up her future as a model, because in this way he will become rich and will be able to look after all the whims and desires of the girl. The Juan of the future observes the scene from afar, and in a moment it dissolves in the air, waking up in the alternate 2011. The scientist quickly realizes that now his life has changed and he has become a successful rich man. Knowing the events of the future, the self of the past has founded a company called the Man from the Future, thanks to which he has become filthy rich. However, he discovers that in this alternative 2011 he still did not marry Helena, and indeed, he had her locked up behind bars, leaving her a few kilos of white powder in homes. Then friendship with Otavio is now a distant past, as he betrayed his friend and bribed the judge to get his share of the business. In short, Juan discovers that he has betrayed all the people he cared a lot about in his previous life. Helena is in prison, Otavio is bankrupt, and Sandra is forced to close her latest project because of his company. Trying to solve the problems of this timeline, Juan frees Helena from prison and passes all her property to her. On his way home, he finds his best friend who is ready to kill him. Juan begs his friend not to pull the trigger, because they can use the time machine to go back to the past and create an alternate future. Wearing the astronaut costume, the scientist returns again in 1991. He arrives at the party and runs to the attic, where he meets young Juan and the original future self. The shocked student loses consciousness, while Juan about the alternate future talks to him about the original future. The astronaut asks himself to abandon the plan to change the future and leave everything as it is. Juan, blindfolded, does not want to listen to him and lashes out at himself about the alternative future. The astronaut takes out a gun, points it at himself, and forces him to attend the original events without intervening. Soon they both meet Ottavio, who has come from the alternate future following his partner. Even Ottavio wants to give himself, a young man, a couple of useful tips to change his future. Blindfolded Juan explains to his friend that the astronaut Juan has decided not to interfere with the past in order to bring everything back to its original course. Ottavio doesn't like that, so he joins Juan blindfolded, and together they tie up the astronaut Juan. Eliminated the threat, the two run towards their respective young selves, where they discover that young Juan has already drunk Ricardo's champagne. Meanwhile, Sandra is hiding in the basement. She meets Juan from the alternate future, but she doesn't believe him. However, when she sees the new iPhone, she records a video and realizes that the scientist is honest. The girl unties the astronaut, and they run away together. Meanwhile, blindfolded Juan and Ottavio from the future take Helena and young Juan under the influence of drugs to the basement. There, the astronaut Juan knocks out Ottavio and ties up Juan blindfolded. Astronaut Juan takes advantage of the moment of peace to talk to Helena. He tells her everything that will happen to them in the future, and also in the alternative one. Everything she has seen in the last few minutes is the result of his mad love for her. She tells her that although she now knows everything that will happen to her in the future, she still has to part with him, accept Ricardo's proposal to become a model, and fly to Spain with him. She is not ready for such a life and asks for explanations, as she genuinely loves Juan and wants to be with him. Juan asks her to continue the original version of their life, but don't forget that and wait for their meeting in 20 years. Helena eventually agrees, and together with Juan from the future, they take the student to the stage, where he is humiliated and sprinkled with feathers as in the original past. His girlfriend gives him the nickname of Zero, and later cheats on him with Ricardo by accepting his proposal. Astronaut Juan returns to the basement, and sees the blindfolded self and Ottavio as they dissolve into the air. After completing the experiment with a new source of sustainable energy, Ottavio opens the door and sees Juan as an astronaut. Juan tells his friend about time travel and the adventures he has had to face. As proof, he shows him the recording on the cell phone with young Sandra. Realizing that his machine would be used by evil people who would change the future of humanity for their own personal pleasure, Juan decides to eliminate the source code and all data that can help build the device. As he leaves the university building, Juan writes to Helen on social media, telling her that it has been exactly 20 years since their last meeting. Arriving at the airport, he breaks through a crowd of guards and kisses his beloved again. Realizing that the 20-year-old wait is over, Helena fires Ricardo and walks away with Juan. A year later, the scientist is found not guilty of destroying the costly project. As he leaves the courthouse, he sees the limo Sandra is in. It turns out that 20 years ago, the young Sandra not only untied the astronaut, but she also got valuable advice from him. She invested all of her money in Google stock, and with her funds she sponsored Juan's time machine project. Now it's clear that the timeline was supposed to go this film way from the start, and now the timeline has finally come to an end. Helena, Sandra, Ottavio, and Juan celebrate in the limo, realizing that their life will now be perfect as they have plenty of money. Helena is happy with this, but she understands that when cheated a bit, the man does not deny it and affirms that in the end they deserve a small reward. In this way the film ends. Subscribe for more videos like this, turn on notifications, and like to help grow the channel. Thanks for watching.